Ever catch yourself wondering, like really wondering, what it actually takes to be a good leader?
Mm,
And I don't just mean the boss kind, right?
right.
But like
Yeah.
in any part of life.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're diving into today. We're
Right.
going deep on leadership, pulling insights from some heavy hitters. We've got Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V,
Of course.
mindset guru Tony Robbins,
Yeah.
even former Navy SEAL Jocko Willink.
Wow, that's quite a lineup.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Buckle up because we're covering a lot of ground today.
I'm ready. Let's do it. And you know what's so interesting is we're not talking about some rigid definition of leadership here.
Right.
I mean, these guys come from completely different worlds. You've got business, self-help, the military.
Talk about different.
Right. Yet they all seem to agree on this core idea of influence, inspiring action in others. And that goes way beyond just, barking orders.
It's like that saying, you can lead a horse to water.
Exactly.
But real leadership is about making them want to drink.
100%. And Gary Vaynerchuk, or Gary V as he's known online, he really stresses this almost radical empathy as a key leadership tool.
Okay.
He argues that genuinely caring about your team's needs, even more than your own, that's what builds that deep loyalty that gets everyone moving in the same direction as a unit.
So it's not just about being nice. There's actual strategy behind it.
Oh, absolutely. When you truly understand what motivates your team, their individual goals, what they want to achieve, you can tap into that.
I see.
It becomes less about you as the leader and more about fostering an environment where everybody feels supported, feels empowered to do their absolute best work.
Which totally reminds me of Simon Sinek. You familiar with his work?
Oh, yeah, big fan.
Remember that story he tells about Noah, the Four Seasons employee?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
I mean, some details wrong, but
Go on.
Noah worked at another casino on this trip, right? But he only felt truly valued, truly respected at the Four Seasons. And what's fascinating is it all boiled down to these small, almost insignificant interactions with the managers.
Okay.
But these managers, they genuinely cared. They cared how he was doing, how he was feeling.
Wow.
It's crazy how those seemingly tiny moments can make such a huge impact,
It's true. Think about it. If your employees feel valued, respected, they're way more likely to go above and beyond for the customers.
Right.
That's how you cultivate a company culture that actually translates into an amazing customer experience. It's not just some feel-good thing. It's good for business.
It totally makes sense. If you feel like just another cog in the machine, why would you care? Right. But if you feel like you're part of something bigger.
Part of something that matters.
Yeah.
And that's where understanding what Tony Robbins calls blueprints comes in. He believes that every single person, you, me, everyone listening, we're all driven by this unique set of desires, fears.
Our own internal programming.
Yeah, exactly. And effective leadership. Well, it's about deciphering what makes people tick, their values, motivations. Then you can tailor your approach accordingly.
So less about imposing your style and more about adapting to theirs.
Bingo. Like a puzzle.
Yeah.
You've got to find the right pieces, see how they fit together to create a really strong, high-performing team. And I think that requires a certain level of self-awareness from the leader, wouldn't you say?
100%. You can't expect to understand others if you don't get yourself first, right?
Exactly.
And speaking of self-awareness, something that really hit me was Jocko Willink's concept of detachment.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more.
It's like, imagine you're playing chess, right?
Okay, yeah.
Detachment is like taking a step back from the board, getting a clearer view of the whole game.
I like that. And Jocko, he's not just talking about it. He lived it as a Navy SEAL. That story about him on the oil rig during the training mission, incredible.
Isn't it? Everyone else so focused on the immediate task, their vision narrowed by the chaos. But Jocko, he was the only one who stepped back, literally, to assess the situation.
Powerful.
He detached from that immediate panic, that frenzy.
Right.
And by doing that, he saw the solution everyone else missed, even those with way more experience.
Wow.
That's the power of perspective.
Yeah, that's incredible.
It really highlights how easy it is to get caught up in the weeds, to lose sight of the big picture when the pressure's on. But how do we actually use this detachment thing every day? It's not like we're all facing life or death situations on oil rigs.
That's the cool thing about Jocko's approach. It's not just for the battlefield. He gives super practical advice on cultivating detachment in any situation. Well, he talks about physically creating distance, right? When things get a little heated.
Okay.
Like literally lean back in your chair during a tense meeting, or even just lift your chin. Just that small physical adjustment can create a mental shift. It's about hitting pause on that knee-jerk emotional response and tapping into, a calmer, more rational part of your brain. And it's not just physical space either. He's big on the power of silence.
Ow.
Listening more than you speak.
Now that's huge for me. I'm a talker. The idea of strategically using silence. I got to work on that.
It can be incredibly powerful, trust me, especially in leadership roles. Sometimes the best thing you can do is create space for others, let them voice their ideas, and really listen to what they have to say.
It's about making people feel heard, which again comes back to empathy.
It all connects.
Okay, so we've talked about understanding your team, detaching from chaos.
Mm-hmm.
What about the internal stuff? Because let's be real, sometimes I feel like I'm my own worst enemy.
Oh, I hear you. You've hit on something crucial there, and it's something Tony Robbins talks about a lot. The psychology of success. He's convinced that our limiting beliefs, those negative stories we tell ourselves,
Tell me about it.
they hold us back more than any external obstacle.
Yeah, for sure.
He's got this great story about Mel Fisher, spent 27 years searching for this Spanish galleon loaded with gold.
27 years. You're kidding.
Nope. Think about that level of commitment.
Unwavering.
Right. Most people would have given up after, what, a year? Maybe 2.
Definitely.
But decades.
What kept him going?
Tony says Fisher had these 3 core beliefs. 1, there's treasure out there. 2, I will find it. And 3, it's worth the effort.
Wow.
That unwavering belief, that's what fueled his persistence, even when everyone else thought he was nuts.
So it's not just about talent or resources. It's about that deep down faith in yourself, in your vision.
That's it. And it ties into his whole thing about state. He's big on that.
State.
Yeah, like we aren't one-dimensional, right? Our emotional state, our mental state, it all influences our actions and ultimately our results.
Oh, yeah, I get that. Some days you wake up feeling unstoppable, and other days, forget it, you can barely get out of bed.
Exactly. He talks about working with Paul Tudor Jones, one of the most successful traders out there. But even someone at his level, sometimes he'd get stuck in a negative state.
Really?
Tony noticed that when Paul was in the zone, making those million-dollar trades, he literally carried himself differently, like different energy, different confidence.
So it's not just think positive thoughts, it's embody it.
Exactly. They worked on physically shifting Paul's state to get him back to peak performance. It's amazing how interconnected our physicality and psychology really are.
Okay, so this is all great, but big question. Can anyone be a leader? I mean, come on, it's 2024. The world's changing so fast. Are we all just playing catch-up?
That's where Tony's perspective on adapting is so important. He's all about continuous learning, constantly upgrading your skills and knowledge.
What worked yesterday might not work tomorrow.
Right. He even uses himself as an example. Remember that story about him working 2 jobs?
Yeah, the 8-hour shift. Talk about dedication.
Yeah.
He didn't just become Tony Robbins overnight. He put in the work, even when it was hard.
And that's what he challenges us to do, too. He says this is the greatest time to be alive because the opportunities for self-education are everywhere.
True. You can learn almost anything online these days. But it's not just about knowledge, right? It's about using it.
100%. He talks about finding your core gift, what you're naturally good at, and then figuring out how to add value with that.
So it's like that old saying, choose a job you love and you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
But it's not always that simple, is it? I mean, what about people who haven't found that thing yet? Or they feel stuck in jobs that don't light them up?
Well, that's where Tony's advice on reframing failure comes in. He's got this analogy about teaching a kid to walk. How many times do they fall down before they get it?
Oh, countless times. But you don't give up on them because they stumble. And you certainly don't tell them to stop trying because they might fall again, right?
Exactly. Failure is just part of the process. It's like a stepping stone.
Yeah.
Tony believes we should view career setbacks the same way. As long as we're learning from our mistakes, adapting, refining our approach, we're on the right track. He actually tells a great story about a guy named Peter Gruber who...
Wait, Peter Gruber?
Yeah.
The entrepreneur. I've heard of him.
Yeah, him. He's a perfect example of resilience. Once told Tony a story about his neighbor who was teaching his son to ride a bike.
Okay.
This kid, he had some physical challenges, kept falling, but his dad never gave up on him. Not once. Always there to encourage him. Get back up. You got this.
It makes you realize how important that support system is, to remind us we can do it even when we doubt ourselves.
Absolutely. And Peter said watching them, it taught him a huge lesson about failure. Like, as long as you keep getting back up, failure is just a speed bump. You're still on the road to success.
That's such a good point. It's not about avoiding failure completely. It's about that resilience to keep going when things get rough.
And that's especially key right now in this crazy, fast-changing world. So much uncertainty, tech advancements left and right. We've got to be adaptable, ready for new
It's
challenges.
almost like we need a bit of that entrepreneurial spirit, that willingness to try to experiment, even if it means failing sometimes.
Precisely. And that brings us to another nugget of wisdom from Tony. He's big on running two businesses at once.
Two, do you mean like a side hustle thing?
Kind of, but it's even bigger than that. He's saying, look, absolutely take care of your current business, the one paying the bills, right?
Right.
But carve out time to build the business you want to have, your future business.
So always be learning, always be growing.
Exactly. He
Yeah.
recommends 90 minutes a week, minimum, working on your business, not just in it.
Interesting.
And he's clear this isn't just for CEOs, it's for anyone, no matter your job, your career path. It's about investing in your own growth. And it doesn't have to be a solo thing either. Tony talks about getting your team involved, brainstorming, asking the tough questions, being open to new ideas. That's how you stay ahead of the curve.
It all comes back to that idea that leadership is influence.
There you go.
If you're learning, growing, adapting, you're not just leading yourself, you're inspiring others to do the same.
Hmm.
And in a world overflowing with information, with new technology popping up every day, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, insignificant even.
Oh, for sure. It's easy to feel lost in the noise.
But if we can tap into that inner drive, that desire to make a difference,
That changes things, doesn't it?
it does. It becomes less about, am I a leader?
Yeah.
And more about, what impact do I want to have?
And that, my friends, is something worth thinking about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time.